Hey there. So today I wanted to talk about this here. This is a Previews catalog. This is from Diamond. They are the company that's sort of the big distributor for comic books kind of across the industry. And this is the catalog that everyone uses to order from. So it has everything, for the most part coming out from comic books here in a couple months. And, on the flip side here, there's a lot of merchandise and, like action figures and statues and toys and different things you can order too. But if you're buying something at a comic shop, they ordered it through this. So it's a pretty important part of comic shops. I order my books directly from Discount Comic Book Service, and I use this too to order. I'm bringing all this up today because I got an email the other day from DCBS. And this is the email I got saying that the next couple Previews catalogs have been canceled because Previews will no longer offer a printed catalog. So that's a pretty big deal for the industry in general. So yeah, the sort of short term of that is that this catalog, which has been a thing since I've been collecting comics, maybe not even this version of the catalog, but again, distributors have catalogs. I bought my first comic catalog, I think it was Advanced Comics, which may have been a different distributor back in like 1992. So that's how long I've been buying these. So this is going away, it looks like, and presumably, of course there will still be an online digital catalog. Not having this is definitely a change for the industry. Part of what probably helped lead to this were these here. So these are catalogs made by other companies specifically for their products. If you watch sort of like my weekly comic videos of stuff I get in, I get these catalogs in. So here's Marvel's separate catalog, and I think this was the first one. And again, so I've gone through some of these on the channel, but again, this is everything Marvel has coming out in a couple months, and you can pre-order here. And then DC does the DC Connect, and they've kind of done different versions of this over the years too, but they have like their own monthly catalog. And IDW and Image even do it now too. So I assume these will all still be made. Unless we hear differently, I'm assuming that all these individual catalogs will still continue to be produced because, again, these companies want that kind of, exposure and sort of advertising for their products. But yeah, this going away though is definitely, like a big deal. I kind of half expected this to happen back in 2020 with everything kind of going on then, and like, stores not shipping regularly. Well, just Diamond not shipping regularly is what it was. It's different, and I mean, you can make your argument like, oh, well, there's still an online catalog. There's all these individual catalogs for the companies, but I think this is really going to hurt the small press. So, going through here is not the same as, clicking through a list on a website. I can, here we've got just the Dark Horse section, Aladdin books. They have one book coming out this month, and it's Molly and the Bear Campers Beware graphic novel. This could be a good book. Am I going to click on Aladdin books on the website? Probably not. So indie books have a hard enough time kind of finding an audience. And, the internet has kind of changed some stuff and, social media and things like that. But there is still, something to be said for just flipping through the Previews catalog and seeing a book you wouldn't necessarily have seen, something that like your local comic shop may not have ordered. It might be the only way you find out about some of these books. I've done that a lot of times over the years and found some good stuff. It's not all gold, obviously. Nothing is. But, how do you traverse, the internet to find the good indie book you like? Kickstarter is just flooded with different books people make now. There's all sorts of stuff on social media, people promoting their artwork and their comics they have coming out. So it's hard to kind of cut through some of that. You could still make the argument there's a lot of stuff here in the catalog, but, if I'm sitting down going through the catalog making my monthly order, there's a, much better chance that I'll stop and take a second to look at something in here. DC and Marvel are going to be fine, obviously. Will this hurt Dark Horse? What about Boom? And like, Dynamite even. I kind of half expect some other companies to start popping up with other catalogs like this. I wouldn't be surprised if Dark Horse or Dynamite, or Boom, any of them, maybe Oni even too, starts doing their own catalogs like this. Again, we'll see how that plays out. A lot of times companies will take out, sort of like advertising space in the catalog. Previews of their books coming out, or different, variant covers, or interviews with creators and that kind of thing. But, when you're dealing with a website, they all just sort of have the same amount of space. So makes it harder to kind of sell your book in that environment, I think. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. What does this mean long term? I don't think comic shops are going to close because of this or anything like that. But I think it will hurt the small press. I don't know how it might hurt even some of like the medium-sized companies, too. We'll see. Because again, it's going to make it just that much harder to break through to an audience. Usually I will sort of click through the different companies that I usually read, books from. But, do I start going through all of them now? That's probably going to add a couple hours at least to my, ordering every month of the books I want. And it will just expound, even more for comic shop. If an owner has to go through and, look at every listing, you have to click on it, wait for it to load and that kind of thing online, as opposed to just flipping pages in the catalog. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Again, distribution's been kind of a mess the last few years. And I've worked at a couple comic shops. I'm kind of glad I'm not right now, because I'm not dealing with all that headaches right now. But yeah, it's definitely sort of an end of an era, for comic shops. And I know that sounds hyperbolic, but this, is significant. This will have an impact in ways that, maybe we're not sure about yet. But again, I'm sure the online catalog will still be there. Again, I assume that the bigger companies will still be doing their catalogs. We might see some new ones. We'll see. This is something I get every month. One less thing I'm getting, but, it'll lead to less books I'm buying. It'll be real easy for a graphic novel to kind of slip through the cracks now without this. Just like a one-off thing. Because like if I see something's up to like 15 issues and I haven't heard of it, maybe I'll check that out. But a graphic novel will come and go. And I may not even know it was released now. I did see some of that back in 2020 too. There have been books that I've seen since. So I'm like, oh, when did this come out? How'd I miss this? DC books. And it's like, oh, that was in 2020, 2021. I'm like, oh, okay, well, no wonder I missed it with everything that was going on back then. So yeah, we'll see how this plays out. Do you get previews? Do you use this to order your comics? Even if you don't, your comic shop does. But yeah, what do you think about this? Do you think we'll get more catalogs? I suppose it's possible the other distributors create catalogs. I don't really see that happening necessarily because of the online ordering systems, but maybe. So yeah, let me know in the comments below what you think about all this. Have you been collecting comics? Do you read previews? Would you prefer to just go online with it? Do you now? That's possible. Yeah, so just let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are on this. And thanks for watching. If you'd like to follow me on social media, I'm on Twitter/X @Detective651, also on Instagram @Detective651. Be sure to check out my t-shirt store at tpublic.com/user/Detective651. I've got a lot of nerdy designs on there, and there's sales all the time, so check it out frequently.